Let go of my wife. That was the last thing they heard before I emptied my Glock 19 on them, every shot echoing through the quiet neighborhood like thunder tearing apart peace. Before we dive in, comment which country you're watching from. Let's see how far this story travels. It all started with a $50 fine, 50 bucks. That's all it took for the HOA to turn my life upside down. When my wife Laura and I moved into Maple Ridge Estates, we thought we'd finally found peace. The neighborhood looked perfect, clean sidewalks, trimmed lawns, and polite smiles that didn't quite reach the eyes. We'd been married 3 years and Laura was 6 months pregnant. All I wanted was stability, a safe place to raise our first child. Then came Karen Wells, the HOA president. She was the kind of woman who measured power in signatures and fines. The first notice came a week after we moved in. Unapproved landscaping, $25. Then improper trash storage, $30. The next one made me laugh out loud. Unauthorized exterior cleaning, $50. That last one was the spark. I'd washed my car, a black Chevy Silverado, in my own driveway. Nothing illegal, nothing against code. I filed a dispute citing county ordinance, the one that specifically allows personal car washing on private property. Karen ignored it. A few days later, I noticed two men walking the street in black tactical vests with HOA cops stitched across the chest. They had no badges, no marked vehicle, just radios clipped to their belts and cheap authority in their posture. I asked them once, "Who authorized you to be here?" One said, "We're the HOA's security enforcement." The other added, "Just following orders from Mrs. Wells." It was nonsense. Private citizens pretending to be law enforcement. Impersonation. A felony. I told them to stay off my property. They smirked and walked away. That weekend, I went out early to grab tools and lumber. I was planning to build a small outdoor bench and a baby swing frame, something simple for Laura. The sky was clear, the day quiet. For a moment, everything felt normal again, until it didn't. As I turned onto our street, I noticed a silver SUV parked crooked in front of my driveway. My stomach tightened. Two men in black vests, the same fake HOA cops, stood near the garage. One had a clipboard, the other stood too close to my front door. Then I heard it, a scream, Lara's voice. The sound shot straight through me, sharp, desperate, terrified. I slammed the truck into park and jumped out, heart hammering. She stumbled into view, barefoot, trembling, one hand on her belly, the other trying to push the taller man away. He had her arm in a grip, holding her like she was some criminal. "Ma'am, you're under violation," he shouted. "Until the fine is settled, you're not leaving this property." I stepped forward, my voice calm but cold. "You've got 3 seconds to take your hands off my wife." They didn't move. That's when I drew my Glock 19. And in that frozen heartbeat, they realized they weren't dealing with a rule breaker. They were dealing with a husband defending his pregnant wife. One held her left wrist, the other gripped her waist, half dragging her toward the porch. Lara's voice was caught between a sob and a gasp. I didn't think. I reacted. I'm no vigilante. I'm a licensed gun owner with my Glock 19 registered, safety courses passed, and every legal paper tucked neatly in my truck. But when two men lay hands on your pregnant wife, there's no wait and see. Let her go, I ordered. The one with the clipboard smirked. This is HOA enforcement, sir. She's in violation. The other cut him off with a shove that nearly sent Lara to her knees. $50 fine, or we take property as collateral. Collateral. That word flipped a switch. I drew the Glock in one smooth motion, stance square, voice level. You've got 3 seconds to let her go. They hesitated. The clipboard man tightened his grip, and the other moved the knife at his belt just enough to flash it. That was all I needed. I fired. 3 sharp cracks tore through the afternoon. The first 2 rounds hit the knife holder. Arm, then shoulder. He screamed, the knife tumbling from his hand as he stumbled back. The third shot caught the clipboard man in the thigh. He dropped instantly, howling, palms flat to the pavement. Both men hit the ground almost together. The sound echoed off garage doors up and down the street. Lara broke free and ran straight to me, barefoot on the concrete, shaking so hard I thought she'd collapse. I caught her with one arm and holstered the Glock with the other. "You're safe," I said, though my pulse still hammered like a drum. Neighbors began pouring out of their houses, phones up, voices high. Someone yelled, "Call 911." Another shouted they were attacking her. Within minutes, sirens cut through the air. Sheriff's cruisers slid to a stop across my driveway, blue lights bouncing off every window. Deputies poured out, weapons drawn but controlled. I raised my hands immediately. "Shooter's me," I said, calm and clear. "Legal firearm. Fired 3 shots to stop an assault on my pregnant wife." A deputy nodded, took my pistol, and holstered it in an evidence bag. "You did the right thing, sir. Stay where you are." EMTs rushed the wounded men. One screamed as they lifted him. The arm was a mangled mess, likely broken beyond repair. The other was pale, blood seeping through his pant leg. Both alive, both breathing, both finished. Lara sat on the curb wrapped in a blanket, an officer checking her pulse while another listened for the baby's heartbeat with a handheld Doppler. Strong and steady. Relief made her cry again. Neighbors whispered behind the tape. He warned them, someone said. They grabbed her first. A detective crouched beside the gurney, looked at the man clutching his arm, and asked, "Who sent you?" The answer came out between groans. "Karen. She told us to scare them." I heard it. So did the deputies. And as the cruisers pulled away with sirens fading, I knew this wasn't over, just the start of something bigger. If you're enjoying this HOA story so far, like and subscribe because the story is only going to get better. By sunrise, the story had already spread across Maple Ridge estates like wildfire. Neighbors were talking, reporters were circling the block, and the HOA president, Karen Wells, was suddenly very quiet. Sheriff Morales called me into the station later that afternoon. I'd barely slept, still running the sound of those 3 shots in my head. When I walked into his office, he didn't waste time. He slid a folder across the desk, full of photos, text messages, and money transfers. "She hired them," he said flatly. "She paid those 2 clowns 400 each to teach you a lesson." Then he added, "She told them you were a problem to her HOA." The evidence was solid. Bank transfers from her personal account, security footage from my driveway, and both suspects signed statements. The one whose arm and shoulder I'd shot couldn't even hold a pen properly. They had to record his statement on video. According to the hospital report, his ulna bone was crushed in 3 places. The surgeon said he'd never regain full use of that arm again. The other one suffered a deep leg wound and nerve damage. Both would be facing years in prison. But Karen, she'd face worse. The sheriff smiled grimly. "We're charging her with conspiracy to commit assault, hiring impersonators of law enforcement, and solicitation of violence. That's 3 felonies. You won't be seeing her on any HOA board again." I didn't say anything at first. I just stared at the photos. The cheap vests that said HOA cops, the knife on the pavement, my wife in shock wrapped in that silver emergency blanket. Every detail burned in my mind. When I got home, Lara was sitting on the porch swing, her hand resting gently on her belly. The bruises on her arm were fading, but the fear in her eyes hadn't gone anywhere. "They arrested her," I said quietly. She looked at me for a long time, then nodded. "Good. No one touches our family again." A few days later, the HOA board sent out a neighborhood email, trying to spin it, calling it an unfortunate misunderstanding. But the sheriff's press conference shut that down. Every outlet covered it. HOA president arrested for orchestrating fake police attack on resident's pregnant wife. The footage from my cameras became public record. It showed everything: the assault, the gunfire, my calm surrender when the deputies arrived. The sheriff himself cleared me of any wrongdoing. It was ruled self-defense, 100% justified under State Penal Code 9.31, defense of a third person. Karen was sentenced to 4 years in state prison, plus $40,000 in restitution to cover damages and emotional distress. The fake HOA cops were each given 7-year terms for impersonating officers, aggravated assault, and conspiracy. After that, the HOA fell apart. Members resigned, meetings stopped, and Maple Ridge Estates finally got quiet, truly quiet, for the first time since we moved in. One evening, as the sun dropped behind the houses, Lara sat beside me on the porch and whispered, "Do you ever regret it?" I looked down the street where it had all happened, the driveway, the cracked concrete, the patched bullet marks. "No," I said, "not for a second. I warned them. I gave them every chance to walk away." Then I looked at her belly, felt our child kick, and added softly, "That's what I was fighting for." What do you think, folks? Was I too harsh shooting them, or just doing what any husband would have done? Leave your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to know. The end.